Hello and good evening. Welcome to season 2, episode 6 of hashtag What Woke Looks Like. I am your host, Yolanda Yo, the Spiritualist Tops, and we are in for indeed another treat. I always say it's a treat now, but yet another treat. This evening, we'll be talking to Calina Black. She is a cycle breaking coach, and I am so excited about this episode. And I am so excited that I titled it Let's Talk Breaking Cycles. But before we bring Calina to the stage, I'm going to play a really, really quick introductory video from our sponsor, the Female Solution. And after that, the next voice you will hear will be none other than that of course, myself first. I'm going to do a quick intro, but then I am also going to bring Kalina to the stage. So sit back, relax, and let's enjoy season 2, episode 6 of hashtag What Woke Looks
Women have the power to transform this world. We can end crime and violence if we all agree to do one thing: share. Let's share our wisdom, share our time, share our talents, share our finances, but most of all, let's share our love. This is the Female Solution.
And we're back. So as I was saying before, have a special guest tonight, and I'm really, really excited to have this conversation with her. We met over on TikTok. She would come into some of the lives that I was doing, and we connected immediately. And when I found out that she was a coach, much like myself, I said, "Oh my goodness, how amazing is that? I have to have you on the show." So she's here. She agreed to come on, and I just couldn't be more thrilled. But before I bring her to the stage, let me just tell you a little bit about Calina. She's the CEO and founder of 888 Coaching LLC, where she helps individuals and families break negative generational cycles through a powerful blend of emotional intelligence, behavioral awareness, and spiritual insight. With a background in social emotional learning, youth development, and holistic coaching, Kalina creates transformative experiences that help people unlearn survival patterns, strengthen boundaries, and build healthier relationships with themselves as well as others. Through her work with youth, adults, schools, and community organizations, she guides clients from awareness to real life change, focusing on healing the root instead of managing the systems. Kalina is passionate about helping people reclaim their voice, rewrite their story, and become the cycle breaker in their family and community. I am so excited to introduce to some and present to others none other than Kalina Black, who is our special guest this evening. Please help me welcome her to the stage. Kalina.
Hello, hello. Good
How are
evening.
you?
I am well, my love. I am well. I am blessed and highly favored. So happy to be a guest on this podcast with you. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course, of course. I always, jump at the opportunity to speak with someone who is like-minded, who kind of embodies the meaning of, the woke
Mhm.
movement, so to speak. And one of the things that I think really stuck out for me as I was just, reading through your bio was the
Mhm.
fact that, you said that it's not just about managing symptoms. And I think that as coaches, and myself having been a former therapist for years, was always
Mhm.
about managing the symptoms, trying to make sure that, it's kind of like going to the doctor and which I, coincidentally had a doctor's visit yesterday. And, we were going through the symptoms. Yes, going through the symptoms as they do. And no
Right,
shade to the doctor because he is
right.
amazing. Is a beast. Okay. I would recommend him to anyone, anytime, and any place. But as he was saying, he said, well, we got to do a little trial and error. We got to talk through things. We got to try to figure out, where we are, what's been the pattern as of late. And so I just love the fact that you have brought that same mentality into your coaching practice. I think that that is just amazing.
Oh,
So,
yes, thank you.
yes, definitely, definitely. So tell us exactly what is a cycle breaking coach and what does one do? We gotta know.
So, a cycle breaking coach basically helps you find the root of what's causing those symptoms that's causing that stagnation, that whatever's preventing you from achieving your goals, from being who you want to be in life, but not only for yourself, but for your children or their future lineage, the grandchildren. And there's just those repeating things that you've seen over the years, whether from your parents, their parents, just going as far back as you can think of, and you start noticing these things. Hmm,
Mhm,
I notice my family has this issue with this particular behavior,
mhm,
or we can't seem to overcome this thing in life, whether it's something emotional,
mhm,
physical, spiritual, all the important areas.
mhm,
And so what I do is help you break down and go back to think what started those cycles. Because we
mhm,
know often what the symptoms are. The symptoms are typically things that we struggle with, such as mental anguish, anxiety, depression, um, what's the other word I'm looking for? Often like the strong black woman or strong black man mindset,
yes, yes,
overcompensating, financial setbacks. These are like common things that many families tend to struggle with and tend to be generational. So I help those individuals think back, okay, where did this start from? What are you currently doing? And what is it that needs to be done differently so you can break that change, so you can break that repetitive cycle?
right. Oh, I love that. Yeah, that is such a key piece, So you invite the client, if you will,
Mhm.
to take a trip back down memory lane to kind of
Absolutely.
see, where this all started. So I wanted to also, just highlight the fact that when I initially met you,
Mhm.
you were calling yourself a social emotional learning coach. So
Yes.
speak a little bit to how you made this transition from cycle breaking, or rather from SEL to cycle
Mhm.
breaking.
Well, initially, I started SEL work about 12 years ago, 12, 13 years ago.
Hmm.
And about 4 or 5 years, or no, maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, I got the opportunity to get back in that line of work. And
Hmm.
so that was like my 9 to 5. That's
Okay.
what I was doing all day, working in different school settings, helping children learn how to balance their emotions.
Hmm.
And so, since I had kind of adopted those things from my 9 to 5, I said, I'm pretty good at this, actually, really good at this. So I just carried over some of those same frameworks and structures into my coaching business. Now, recently, during certain trials and things in my life,
Hmm.
I you know how you get in those moments, and we spoke about this before about how it gets to a point where God will sometimes sit you down so
Yes.
you can focus, so you can redirect.
And heal.
And with man, and went through and still, overcoming some hardships, and
Mhm.
sat down, and God showed me, okay, you're always asking me, God, why? And I know many of us have that question, God, why am I going through this? Why has life been so hard?
Yes.
Why am I always struggling?
Yes.
And no matter what life throws at me,
Mhm.
The core of me has always been saying to myself, it's for a reason. I
Oh,
may not
definitely.
be able to see it yet or understand why, but it's for a reason.
For a
And
reason.
so after recently just spending a lot of deep diving and grounding myself,
Yes.
God helped me hone in on what my niche was.
Oh,
Years ago,
yes.
I always said, I want to be the cycle breaker. I want to stop certain things in my bloodline from happening because I
Yeah.
didn't want my children to go through that. So I said, I refuse to let mine go through it and go
Yeah.
through some of these same things. So come
Amen.
hell or high water, I'm gonna make sure it gets done.
Yeah.
Not realizing what really came with
Right.
that work and was like, okay, this is why they say be careful what you ask for.
Or right, because you don't know what you might get.
Man,
So you asked for it and you got it, is what you're saying.
basically, but it it brought a new awareness and love for what I do because now with this mindset of approaching my coaching, it's much more personalized versus when I just labeled myself an SEL coach. That
Got
was just a field I happened into that I ended up being really good at.
I got
But helping break generational curses,
you. Mhm.
that's something that I've lived through, that I've worked through, and have broken a lot so that my daughter, I only have one child, my daughter didn't have to go through.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more connection with that verbiage and as far as what I do versus me just being a SEL coach.
Got you. Got you. I love that. I love how you made that segue. It sounds like, you were spot on in your thinking. And I'm sure that you are already seeing the benefits from that. Yes,
Absolutely.
definitely.
Absolutely. The clarity, the opportunities, the the omens, your ancestors, God, they give you signs that you're on the right track. Man, that now they are firing off left and right. And it's like, that's how I know I'm on to something. I'm on the right track.
I love it. I just love it. Yeah, that's awesome. So it's interesting, and I just, was sitting and listening. It's
Mhm.
interesting how you were talking about the social emotional learning piece and how you were going into schools providing that.
Yes.
Now I'm assuming in the school district where you live, they,
Mhm.
actually allow for people to come in. In most of the districts I've taught in, the teacher has to provide that piece. So I love the fact that, you were able to find that niche and then that the
Yeah.
districts were open to bringing you in. I want to take a really quick comment from my dear friend Linnea McCrary,
Sure.
9807. She's here tonight. She said, that's good stuff,
Good
Calina.
stuff. Yay.
Me, sis, and supporting tonight. I appreciate you as always. So I just kind of stuck a pin in there. I was like, oh, so they actually allowed you to come in and provide this service, and which I love that piece because of the fact that, you know, even though I'm a teacher and a therapist slash,
Mhm.
it was a piece of cake for me. But some of those teachers were like, I don't know what to do with this. And
Mhm.
oh, okay, I'll read the script. But
Right.
many of us know that reading a script is not the same as you having been immersed in the practice.
Absolutely. And I just so happened that I was paired with destiny helpers that came to me and said, "Hey, I see your skill set. You have a lot of potential. You've
Oh, wow.
done this work before. I'm working with this organization. I think you would be a good facilitator to come and do these lessons because as I'm sure you know, teachers, that's a lot on their plate. I will always advocate for teachers. I let them know, like, I could not do your job because not only are they dealing with 20 to 25 personalities, but they have to deal with the parents and their personalities. And let's be real, some of these parents,
some of these
they do a lot of work too.
When you deal with the child, you're like, oh, okay. And then you meet the parent and you're like, oh,
Light bulb.
okay.
This is what, like, now it makes sense.
Light bulb moment, full circle.
Right.
Yeah.
Man. So, like, the districts that I've worked with, some of them, some teachers, they do really, really well with incorporating some kind of social and emotional learning piece and edge it into their curriculum. Where there's others, I mean, let's just be real, that's not a skill set that just anybody can do. It takes a particular type of individual, just like most niches. It takes a particular type of individual to be a surgeon, a nurse, all these different things. So they need the tools as well. And if there isn't a way for them to learn it, then I was privileged enough to work with an organization where there was a community partner, and we were able to go into the schools to help these kids learn how to just manage with their emotions on a day-to-day basis. And even to some degree, their parents, the ones that are willing to work with you and listen.
Yeah, right. The ones that were willing to listen. I just love that district was willing to bring you in, and they saw the value associated with having an expert, on staff to provide that service. That is amazing.
Absolutely.
So, I have to assume, and I don't, make it a habit of asking people their age, and I'm not about to start it now. But I have to assume that you were not born and then you all of a sudden just became a SEL coach.
No. Not at all.
So that bespeaks of there was a journey
for sure
to this. And I am dying to hear, and I'm sure that those viewers at home or wherever they find themselves on this beautiful Tuesday evening are just curious to know, how did you find your way into this particular profession? What was the journey? How did you get here? How did you get to where you
I think a lot of it has to do with what I've now found my niche to be, this cycle breaking coach, because I grew up in an environment where I was emotionally and mentally suppressed. My mother came from an era of children are to be seen, not heard. Do as I say, not as I do. And even also the mentality, dare I say it, slave mentality, that her children were to fear her. Not respect, fear. And I just spoke about this with a colleague of mine on my live last week. But growing up in that type of environment and only having one parent to count on, because I didn't grow up with my father in my life. So my whole background, my whole support was my mother. So I had to learn how to navigate not really my emotions, but hers. That way I wouldn't get beat. And
so were we related? Are we related? Because that's the same story. We got the same story. And I just want to let you know it's the same thing. On a different day, in a different city, with a different mama. But that's
right. But unfortunately, that's like a common theme in Black communities and Black families. Especially when you have parents that were from that boomer and beyond era, because they were still kind of, I feel like they parented the way they were parented.
Yes.
Some maybe stepped outside of the box and were more forward thinking, where others, that's all they knew. So even with things like entrepreneurship, I never, working a 9-to-5 is cool, don't get me wrong, because that's how you learn, that's how you build skills, that's how you build character, all those things. But I was never in my core, I just never felt like I could work for somebody else. I've always been rebellious, even towards my mother. So me having to listen to what someone else tells me to do, when I have to come in, when I have to leave, when I can eat my lunch, how long I have to even eat my food. Like that's no. Done.
Angela, okay?
Where where in my mother's mind, it was always grow up, get a good job, get a 401k. And
And
I'm not against the 401k part because
yeah,
you need to have some financial backing for your future.
yes,
But the work a good job for 30 something, 40 something years, getting a few cents to a dollar something raised every so often, if not every year. No,
no, and no,
no,
yeah,
I don't. No, thanks.
yeah, yeah.
Having to growing up in that type of environment, it made me really well at watching people's behaviors
Oh
as
my
well
God,
as being a listener.
yes, yes,
And I'm sure anyone that works with children in any capacity knows working with children, you
mhm.
have to be able to see behaviors, not just what the kid
Oh,
is telling you, or even in therapy. You
yes,
can't just go by what someone is telling you. What are the behaviors? And you have
exactly,
to be able to listen and not project
yes,
your own
yes,
crap
for sure,
onto them as well.
yes, for sure. Yes. I mean, just ditto, ditto, ditto everything you said. You are strumming my life with your fingers. You are singing my life with your song. Yes, you are. I want
Like-minded
to,
girl, like-minded.
yes, I want to take a quick comment from Dr. Naima Latif, who's saying so many parents erroneously believe raising your children to fear you is good parenting. Ha ha ha. It is
Mhm.
actually emotional abuse. Dr. Naima Latif,
Yes,
she knows exactly what she's talking about. Uh-huh.
yes.
Yes. And I just want to just quickly again resonate uh verbally,
Mhm,
with what everything you said. So I grew up like that.
mhm,
Um my parents split up when I was around 2, maybe
mhm,
3.
mhm.
And my mother packed us up and moved us from Michigan back south, because
Okay,
she's a Southern Belle and, born and raised in the South. So she moved us back to her hometown,
okay.
um, when she and my father split up. And so as I've done the work down through the years, attempting to just kind of unpack, and trying to identify my triggers, some of the generational patterns that I knew I did not want to pass on to my children. And of course, with anything, it's trial and error. You
Oh, of
know,
course.
and as I've grown and as I've evolved and as I've gotten older, of course, I could still look back and say, "Oh, I could see where I kind of screwed up with this." But to err is
Right.
human, forgive divine.
Of course.
We have to forgive ourselves for just um, doing whatever we were given the tools to do.
Yep.
Because at the end of the day, that's all you can do. That's all you can ever be. But to just quickly tie that in, I could remember having to always like navigate, like, oh, is this a good time to ask for this thing? Is this a good time to
Mm,
talk about this thing? And most of the time, I just didn't talk about it at all. I always
mhm,
just so I was raised by in many ways, socially, emotionally, and behaviorally. I was
mhm,
conditioned by my peers. Okay. Um,
mm.
of course, your mother is your first teacher, but everything that I got from that end really came like by proxy. It was not
I got
intentional. It was
right.
more do as I say, not as I do. Don't ask me any questions. If you do this, you're going to get a spanking. You're going to be under punishment. I can remember the switches coming off the dogwood trees in the front yard. I, I could almost feel the welts on my legs right now as we speak.
Man.
Now, there were some good things that came out of it as well. I think that my mother was a very, very classy woman, but again, she did the best she could with what she had. And
Mhm.
a lot of women are put in positions where, they feel as if they have to be the man and the woman, the male and the female, the father
Ye
and the and I think
yes.
that a famous coach, college football coach, I can't remember if it was Bear Bryant or who it was, but he said,
Mhm.
a lot of these men, and I think you could always add women to that too. He said, they're growing up to be men, just like their mamas.
Yeah, and
And I
I'm
thought, okay, that's hilarious the way he said that, but like literally, I felt like I was being raised by a guy, by my father,
Yeah,
even though my father was not in the picture. He was kind of in and out. Just when, Christmas time, of course, there might come a little piece of change, but my
yeah,
mother wanted that responsibility. And it's a huge, huge hat to wear. It is. My
it
grandmother
is.
was, and she did the best she could to help out. But when I was born, my grandmother was 80 years old. So could you
Oh,
imagine that a
yeah,
lady born in 1892 was
yeah,
responsible for trying to help raise a kid born in 1971? My mother,
man.
a product of the 30s. My mother was born in the 30s. My parents were older
Mm,
when they had me. So to your point,
oh, no.
it is just it's one of those things. It's one of those things that we have to try to unpack and try to
Mhm.
resolve as we go throughout our lives.
Absolutely, and it's not that, I don't want anyone from my family that may come back and see this to think that, I'm trying to demonize my
Thank
mother,
you.
because it's not that at all. I love my mother.
Of
When she
course.
passed, it broke me, but there were things that she did that I did not like, and that this is the truth. This is what I had to experience. These are the kind of things that even my sister had to experience. My sister, she's 16 years older than me, but we were still raised by the same woman,
Oh,
you know?
wow. Okay. Love that. Okay. So you got a big
Yes.
sis. Okay.
Yes, because like you, my mother had me when she was older. My mother was 36 when she had me, and I'm an 80s baby. So
Okay.
having a kid at 36 in the 80s was like, girl, what you doing being pregnant? Like,
Like, what's going on here? Yeah. Yeah. I get that. Yeah. Yeah. I get that. So
so,
I'm curious to know, like with you and your sister, I'm just curious to know the conversations that you guys had on the flip side of some of the work that you're doing. What has been your sister's viewpoint centered around that? Like, has she been able to kind of see where you were coming from or not?
I think recently she has, because like I said, through like recent things that I've experienced in life, I have worked through my issues again with my emotional suppression that stemmed from childhood. And I recently had a conversation with her, letting her know, yes, we were raised by the same woman, but my sister still had her father in her life. And then that whole side of her family, where my dad was in and out to barely, like a little bit to nothing at all. I didn't really have a full relationship with my father until like my late 20s, early 30s. And then I did, excuse me, with my daughter, live with him for a bit of time. So that's when we kind of bonded and were able to develop some type of closeness and build some type of rapport.
Hmm.
And when I mentioned that to her recently, she's like, I was just thinking that and saying that. So, where a lot of things in life where she's stronger and more comfortable navigating different parts of life, I struggled in some of those areas, but that's because all I had was one viewpoint and one way
Yep.
from the person that was raising me. I didn't have an opposite to that, or someone, that other parental figure showing me a different way, like, yeah, that, but look
Yeah.
at this perspective as well. And I knew I had to have those parts for me coming from somewhere.
Of course.
So once I did develop that relationship with my father, I'm like, that's where I get this from. Okay. So it's just, you know, again, having to get over those past fears and silencing yourself for the sake of keeping the peace,
Mm-hmm.
which is something also we tend to do in Black families and in the Black community. You know, don't speak about that. Don't say that. That's family business. Don't put that out there. But
Right.
if you don't express it in some kind of way, how are you going to break that generational cycle? How are you going to heal? And then we wonder why we're stuck in the loop.
Yes. How are you going to do that? That's a great question. How will you do that? I think that, it's just important for you to just be intentional about forging ahead,
Yeah.
about ensuring that, you are doing the work, because at the end of the day, it's about you and your
Yeah.
descent. And you know that every time you heal, epigenetic inheritance is real. I don't know how familiar you are with Dr. Joy DeGruy, who's done that
Mm.
work on post-traumatic slave syndrome.
Mm.
Definitely check her out. Oh, I wish I had been thinking. Of course, I've had this epiphany at the nth hour, and I can't
That's
pull up.
okay. What was the name again?
Her name is Dr. Joy DeGruy. It's capital D, lowercase e, and capital
Mhm.
G, lowercase RUY. But she has done
Okay.
an extensive amount of work on epigenetics, and
Mm.
and primarily on post-traumatic slave syndrome, which is of course tied to epigenetics. There are some other folks
Mhm.
who work on epigenetics, and then she just kind of took that and then created this theory centered around
Okay.
SS, okay, if you will. Let's call it that for short.
Right.
But talking about how this mentality is just passed down from generation to generation. And you mentioned that earlier, you said something about people having a slave mentality. Oh my
Yeah.
God. How oh, I can't begin to tell you how profound that was when you said that. I was just like, oh God, she knows. She knows exactly
Mhm.
what's going on. But to that point, it's like when you start hearing about all of the work that people have been doing and it begins to resonate, you're like, okay, so I'm not crazy after all. I get it.
Mhm.
Get it. I
Yes.
hate to do a quick break here, but we are about at the midway point of our segment.
Mhm.
It goes by so quickly, and I'm
Yes.
enjoying the conversation. But I do want to just take a moment to show just a brief clip of you, if that's okay.
Sure.
Um, I want to show a brief clip of you as our break, for our break, and then we will be right back.
All right.
Okay.
Guys, because I feel like a lot of you can relate and that it would help. So I heard the spirit of projection. I know we've heard of the spirit of rejection before, but the way God put it to me was that's not the root. The spirit of rejection is not the root. And that's because many times we can have all the confidence and belief in ourselves in the world, yet still fall short of succeeding or reaching or attaining our goals. That is because we are battling a spirit of projection. The spirit of projection comes from those around you that see you striving to your goals, gaining momentum on the brink of success. And because they fell short with their goals, their dreams, or went forward and got denied, got turned down, then they are projecting that energy on to you. Because it didn't happen for them, they project their rejection onto you. And when enough people projects that kind of energy onto you, it can be difficult to rise above it when you're not aware that that's what's keeping you behind. Therefore, you can't spiritually equip yourself to overcome that barrier. So I tell you this and share this with you so you can take a step back, do a personal inventory, and think to yourself, where within yourself do you hold insecurities that could be preventing you from achieving your goals. And if you resolve that, then it's time to take a look at the circle around you to see how they may be projecting their rejection and denial onto you. This is a winning season for many people. Don't allow others' spirit of projection and the attachment of their rejection affect you. Until next time, guys. Peace. Much deeper than what you think it is on the surface. Spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. Bridges represent things like transitions in life, connecting from one phase of life to another, or even shifting your mindset from one way to another. Recently in my life, I have been pushed into these exact transitions. And not just recently, there's been themes of this throughout my life. In these past few weeks, I have spent a lot of time regrounding myself in this new truth that God needed me to stand in. This truth stemmed from a prayer that I prayed many years ago, before I even had my daughter and even after. You see, I didn't want my children to experience any of the mental, emotional, and spiritual turmoil that I had been through, or that those before me had gone through and weren't able to break off our bloodline. I know many of you have asked for that same thing for the sake of your lineage. And I am here to tell you, I understand and know how hard that road is. I understand and know how lonely that road can be. But I also stand here before you today as proof and testimony that if you do not give up, you can make it through. There's a reason why you ask God to make you that person. Even if you didn't physically ask for it, on a soul level, you asked to be that person, to break those negative generational cycles in your bloodline so that you can lead your legacy into something greater. You just may not understand how or know where to start to get past those things as you step forward into your new.
Ha! I had muted us both during the video. My fault. Sorry. Tell me a little bit about what was going through your mind at the time that you made those videos.
That was, I think, that was this past November.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, as I move forward in my journey, you know, that agonizing voice gets to you, you know, right when you think you're on the verge of a breakthrough, then that old voice of doubt and insecurity creeps in.
Yeah.
And one day I had to think to myself, like, now wait a minute. I don't really feel like that. So where is this voice coming from?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that's not me.
That's not
And
me.
so I asked God, I'm like, God, where is this coming from? Why is it that whenever I have made up my mind that I am pushing towards a goal, I feel amped about it, I feel good, I feel aligned with it.
Mm-hmm.
And as I'm making steps, at some point, it's like, you sure that's gonna work out? Nah, I don't think you should do that.
That doubt.
Nah, that's not gonna be successful.
Yeah.
And what God revealed to me was like, of course it's not you, baby. Those are other people.
Right.
Because not only will other people project their insecurities
They will.
onto you,
They will.
but there are people that just genuinely don't want you to make it for whatever reason.
Oh yeah, for sure. Always. Yeah.
And so a lot of times that's what that voice is.
Oh yeah.
And I have to learn how to overcome that, push that to the side. Like that's background noise. That's not even me.
Mhm.
Because if I truly felt that way, I
Mhm.
wouldn't keep starting again every time I did let the voice get to me and stop. If that's truly how I felt, I would have been gave up.
Of
But
course.
I keep going. So that's how I know it's not me.
That's how you know it's not real.
Absolutely. And then
Yeah.
that other video, that was recent. That was literally just a few weeks ago. And my followers know I am an open book when it comes to hardships, obstacles, things that I've been through.
Mhm.
I have no problem sharing those things because
Right.
I feel like how are you to trust me as your coach to help you break your generational cycles if it always appears that I haven't done the same for myself?
Exactly.
I am my most successful client.
Of course. Of
And
course.
so that is why I share those things. And people are always, I can feel it. I can sense them in spirit. Like, you sure you wanted to share all of that? I don't know if I would have put my business out like that. And for
But
other
why not?
people, that may be what they need to do for their journey.
Right.
But for my purpose, this is what I am called to do. So I am going to be called to share certain things. That's why I'm never going to be embarrassed for having a human experience because just as we've seen here in the comments as well as yourself,
Mhm.
other people are going through the same stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Been there, done that, got the T-shirt and the Lifetime movie to prove it. Okay.
Right.
And like you said, to your point, it is that projection. It is the voice of your first teacher in your
Yes.
head. And then what ends up happening, I found a lot of times, is because that's all we know and that's what we're used to, that's what we became accustomed to. We have a tendency
Hmm.
to attract others into our lives who embody those same characteristics as that parental figure, no matter how semi-toxic that relationship may have been, because it's
Yes.
comfort zone. And what we
Yes.
are humans, we are going to gravitate towards those things that make us comfortable. Yes?
Yep. Yes. True.
Each and every time. So, and as I was sitting here just listening at you talk about that, I'm like just still going back in my mind, unpacking my own story and just thinking about, how far I've come. Yeah, every now and
Hmm.
then I will have those moments of doubt, like you said. I remember my pastor used to years ago used to teach about fear being nothing more than evidence appearing real.
Yes. Yes, love that acronym. That's a favorite of mine too. Yes, because that's all it is.
That's all it is. But by the same token, who is sitting there thinking that their mother, their first teacher, their nurturer, their caregiver is actually, giving them or projecting onto them false evidence appearing real?
Yep. And that's because someone projected that onto them. My
Someone
mother,
project.
she wanted to be a singer. Her and my aunts, her two sisters, they had a singing group and they would do different local talent shows.
Yeah,
I'm from Cleveland, still live in Cleveland. And she told me there was this one big talent show that they wanted to do. And I think it was in like California or something like that.
yes,
No, I'm not remembering the details too accurately, but something like that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And their grandmother, because that's who raised them, because unfortunately their mother got killed when they were very young, so they were raised by their grandmother, and their grandmother told them no. She didn't allow them to go.
Oh wow.
So her dream got pushed to the side. And
Yep.
so she ended up developing the get a good job, work
Mhm.
it, get your 401k and retire. It was projected onto her. she projected onto her kids, but my sister and I, we refused. We did break that cycle with our children.
I love that. And I love that for both of you all. Now, even though, I want to kind of just kind of stick this pin in that,
Mhm.
it's interesting because even though my father really wasn't around for the social, emotional learning piece,
Yes.
because he was a little bit more absent. But I knew enough about him, just from the interactions we did have, the visits we did have, to know that
Mhm.
he, after working for General Motors for many, many years, decided to go into business for himself. And
Mm.
so when I was a little girl, he left GM. I think he had like an injury that ended in a lawsuit, and he got this truckload of money, and he ended up taking it and investing it in a business. So for the longest time, he had a little store that sat right outside of the General Motors factory. So which was like
Oh,
chef's kiss because it's like, oh,
yes.
location, and
Yes.
investing in real estate, it's always about location. And so he was fortunate enough to be able to open that store, which stayed in business for years. But then, we all know what happened with Detroit. We know that General Motors began to kind of go under a little bit with the economy
Yep.
and all of that. So he eventually liquidated and then moved back
Mm.
to Mississippi because my father's a Mississippi native. He moved back,
Okay.
but when he got back home, it's interesting because once you get a taste of what it means to work for yourself, it is
Mhm.
hard as Hades to go back to the 9 to 5 corporate world. And so what daddy did was he opened another store in Mississippi in his hometown.
Nice. Nice.
And once you get that
Okay.
taste of it, again, as you said before, once you get that taste of that freedom and what it feels like to be dependent on you and you
Yes.
and not to have to answer to anybody, to clock in, to clock out, to go to the store, just whatever the case may be, it is a
Yeah.
level of freedom that is unprecedented. And I am myself trying to get back to it as soon as I possibly can because I was self-employed for 3 years. It had its ups and downs,
Mm.
but I mean, what business doesn't? You've got to do some trial and error,
Absolutely.
learn, but it's still that level of freedom was unlike anything I had ever experienced in my life. And I kind of attribute his entrepreneurial spirit to that. So again, it goes back to epigenetic inheritance. Like, whether I
Yes.
was around him or not, there was something in my gene system and in my DNA that said, you can step out on faith and you can be your own boss.
Yes. Yes. My similar. Oh my. It's see. It was a reason why I stepped into your live that night, and we ended up connecting because it's literally a similar thing. My dad was the same way. He worked for Ohio Bell, aka Ameritech. Now we know it as AT&T. That's where
Okay.
he and my mother met.
Okay.
And they both retired from there. But even throughout his life, I ended up learning this down the line once we developed, that
Yeah,
relationship.
for
He's
sure.
always had an entrepreneurial spirit.
Yes.
Whether
Yes.
it were, little things on the side, whether it was investing or my dad was a nerd, so he was really good with like computers and motherboard, like all that kind of thing. So doing little things like that. And then once I learned that about him, I felt like that's where I get it from. Like I knew it had to come from somewhere.
Yes. And
Because
it
I was just so against it.
again, whether that person, because you think about the inheritances epigenetically, and
Hmm.
these are things that were passed down from generation to generation to generation. There are names that we don't know and will never speak because we don't know them,
Right.
that affect who we are today in more
Yes.
ways than one. But
Yes.
this is still a key piece to understand in the breaking of cycles. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because there's, like you said, there's still that connection. If anyone that is watching, if they had similar experiences like you and I, where they were raised by that one parent that kind of kept them in the box, yet they feel something completely different on the inside, even if it didn't come from the other person that created you. It could have came from your grandparents, your great grandparents. Like, it's somewhere in your bloodline.
It's in your bloodline. It's in you. What they say,
Absolutely.
it's not on me.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it. Yes, it was
Yeah,
true.
it is. And you know, it's funny because when I began my spiritual journey, which has been, you know, years ago, you know, almost a decade ago now.
Okay.
But as I was, you know, working my way through it, undergoing my awakening and my dark night of the soul and all of those wonderful things.
Mhm.
It didn't seem so wonderful then, but I mean, I was like, okay, I know there's a method to this madness.
Right.
I could remember the first time I ever got a reading from
Mhm.
a woman who was a Santeria priestess. And she was looking at my bloodline. She was looking at my ancestry.
Mhm.
And she could clearly see a woman who was older woman, but you know, she was clearly someone who probably lived in the 1800s, 1800s, something like that. And she was a healer. And people would come from all over to sit with her under this tree, and she
Yeah.
could, you know, and then this lady was just an older woman. When they called her, she was the madrina of this particular Santeria house, but
Okay.
she had a, you know, very gifted seer. And she said, "Oh, I can see her as clear as day. She's wearing this huge hat, and she's got on this dress and these huge shoes." And you know, we were talking about the fact that in those days, sometimes, you know, coming through slavery and what have you, you had to just, you know, you got a lot of hand me downs and things like that.
Yep.
So shoes really
Right.
her feet. But that did not stop her from her mission and her purpose. And she was like, yeah, she said, there's a lot of healers in your bloodline. She said, that's why you're called to do the things that you're called to do. So that
Right.
just goes to show you. I don't know who that lady was. You know, as she was telling me about her, I could see her. But again,
Mhm.
someone I had never met.
Yeah. That's why I'm so big now on calling on my ancestors for help.
Definitely.
Whether that's
Definitely.
guidance, healing,
Yeah,
protection. I know in the church they tell just call on God. And yes, call on God.
definitely.
But God has also given us the authority to defeat demonic forces.
Yes.
So if he's given us that authority, that means we can call on the help, assistance, and power of those before us on the other side. And
Oh,
people may be like, well, but God can do it all. I know that. But he wants us to actively use our authority. What's the point of him giving us the authority if we're not going to use it?
if we're not going to use it. Exactly. Exactly. I could not have said it better myself, Calina. I swear I could not have. You know, and it's interesting because, you know, you apparently have kind of a church background like I do. Um,
Mhm.
you know, but you would have those who would say, even to this day, that those are demons who you're
Ye-
talking. Those are not your ancestors. Those are demons. Oh, really? You calling my mama a demon? See those fighting words. You calling my
Man,
granny a demon? Honey, my grandmama was a
right.
praying woman. I know you lying, and no, and I rebuke that
Right.
right.
I was just going to say, like, well, I'm going to rebuke that. You are very much entitled to whatever you want to
Right.
believe. I am not here to change anyone's mind, but I
Exactly. That's
am
not
here
my,
to make you think.
but I
I
am here to
am here to make you think.
yes, I'm here to make you think. I'm here to help deconstruct the harmful ideology and theology that is associated with condemnation culture and things of those magnitudes. Because you know we know that based on how we got here, where we are
Mm-hmm.
in this country, on this continent, those of us who
Yes.
brought here from the motherland, we know that common sense tells us that the easiest way to control the masses is through their religion.
Y- Girl.
It's through their religion. Like, If I want to control thousands and thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of slaves, oh, let me make sure I demonize their ancestry. But
Yes.
yet, there's so many contradictions because when you look in the Bible, you see where many of the chapters, many of the verses start with, and so beget so and so. And
Right.
so beget so and so. So it's like a whole, myriad of these contradictions that you have to be, and that is why the Bible even tells us, study to show thyself approved.
Man.
Now, that is not me looking at what you're saying. It's not even me just looking at what a book is saying, but me tapping into my own sense of discernment and being able to extrapolate the fact from the fiction.
I wish I could reach through this screen and hug you, girl.
Well, come on, virtual hug, virtual hug, virtual hug.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's real. But
yes.
That is a mentality that will have to be ripped out, root and stem, for it to ever take true form in the African American community in the diaspora.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And it's not that I don't knock it, because I mean, that's what we were brought up on. But it is so ingrained in our heritage because of slavery that many of us that don't care to learn outside of that won't even learn or be enlightened to the fact that most of those stories were derived and rooted in African spirituality in the first place. They just tweaked it to fit their narrative.
Yeah,
definitely. And that's why I believe that to a certain degree, people that believe in those religious systems, it still works because it's still rooted in our heritage in some way. But we have to get better at just learning to think for ourselves. Like growing up, I never got the idea of don't question God, but then you're telling me to develop a relationship with him. Well, how am I supposed to learn about God if I can't question him? How am I make that make sense?
Well, and I feel like that had to do with the master mentality, the mentality. And that's why, my godfather says he does not like the word Lord. And that was a very interesting take for me. He told me this some years back. He was like, I don't like the word Lord. I was like, really? Tell me about that. He said, because Lord has more of like a masterly like connotation to it. There are humans who are lords.
Right.
You
of land, right. Yeah. Like your landlord, right.
Exactly. He said his theory was always that this was a way for the masters, the slave masters, to get us into this mindset where we were comfortable with using the word Lord to not only describe God, but them, because they were trying to put themselves in that same light as the God Almighty.
Yes. Interesting.
That has stuck with me for a long time. And I tell you, I was used to saying Lord. I had been saying Lord forever. I still say every now and then, Lord have mercy. Oh God.
Right.
Lord. In the South we say Lord have mercy.
Right. I was gonna say I use the LAV way, LAW.
Yeah, we do LAW. That's what we do. But to that end, every now and then I'll read a scripture that will pop in my mind because it made me think.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? It made that's why I love, talking to not just like-minded people, but people who also have a different take on things. And so sometimes when I'm reading and I'm like, Lord, and I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna switch that to God. I just, because I don't want to bring that energy of servitude into my.
Yeah.
Just my 2 cents. Yes.
Man,
So,
that, but go ahead, go ahead.
no, 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 no. I don't want to cut you out. Go ahead. Did you have
No,
something
I
else
had
you?
lost my train of thought. I had put a pin in something you said, and then it flew.
Oh, no, sorry. Well, hopefully it'll come back. It's about time for us to close out. I told you this segment goes so it's like an hour, but it is.
To think my nerves was rattled before this. I was like,
Telling you, girl. I said, girl, there's nothing to be nervous about. You talking to me, honey. I was born talking. I think that's the one thing I was born doing was talking. And if you're not comfortable talking to me, then I just don't know who you're gonna be comfortable talking to. But I wanted to give you an opportunity to share some of the things that you have coming up with your coaching practice, in case there's anybody out there who's maybe interested in booking some of your services. I definitely want to highlight, your professional endeavors.
Sure. I currently have started a wait list for two new programs that I'm starting called one is Harambe for Me for individuals, it's for adults, or Harambe for us. Harambe means let's pull together. And the Harambe for us is for an adult and up to four members of their family, whatever they deem as family, as young as 10 and up, where I provide a customized program. So this isn't cookie cutter. This isn't just, oh, I created a program and then
Yeah,
anyone can benefit. No,
right.
you
No, no, no.
they take assessments that helps me get a deeper idea of really what's rooted in their bloodline and create custom materials from guides to worksheets, activities. They get an hour a week um, virtually with me to go over everything. Everything is customized so that they can begin breaking these generational cycles. And again, whether
Yeah.
it's just if you just want it for yourself, that's Harambe for me. If you
Okay.
want for your whole family, because I learned previously that working with kids, I can do that even in my SEL work in the schools, but
Mhm.
it's pointless when the parents and the rest of the family aren't on board. It's just going to undo
Right.
everything because they're still minors. So you can teach them, but at the end of the day, when they're
Yeah.
out of your presence, they still have to listen to whoever that parent or guardian is.
Mm.
So instead of having it individualized for just adults or children, I have adults and then family. That
Okay.
way you can encompass everyone in the family. And family doesn't even have to be blood related. Your family could be you and three of your friends that you consider family.
I love that.
But these are both programs are, like I said, customized programs to help the individual or the family. So no program is going to look alike. There's curated playlists, there's guides, there's worksheets, there's one-on-ones. It's the whole
Yeah,
shenanigan because you need all of that to truly break these chains in your family. And again,
for sure.
I'm my number one client.
I'm my number one client. Amen to that, sis.
I
Amen.
am the success client.
Yeah, yeah,
I see you have the way they can contact or sign up either
yeah.
through my link tree or my website.
Mhm.
They can sign up. I am currently taking people for the wait list. And then once I have enough people, then we're going to get the ball rolling. They can find all the information on my website.
I love it. I love it. Calina, thank you so much for the work you do. Thank you for being the embodiment of what woke looks like. And for just continuing to forge ahead on your own path and to make a difference in this world that just sometimes seems a little bleak. You're definitely a shining light, and we just really appreciate you. Thank you for spending time with me tonight. And to all of our viewers who have been out there hanging out with us tonight, we appreciate you guys coming in to, hear what
Absolutely.
Selena has to say about breaking the cycle. We talked breaking cycles tonight, and I really feel that there are a lot of people who will benefit from this information. So,
Absolutely.
without further ado, we're gonna close it on out. I have another word from our sponsor. And again, thank you, thank you, thank you. I can't begin to express enough gratitude to
Thanks for
you
having
today.
me.
And I'm looking forward to hopefully having you back at some point, maybe next season, even.
I love it. I'm for it. Yes.
A has gotten started, then you can
Yes.
maybe talk to us a little bit about the success that you're finding with that particular program. I know it's
Love it. Of
yes,
course. Of
yes.
course.
And who
It's
knows?
my purpose.
It is, of course it is. Yes. And that's what you gotta do. You gotta call them things into action, okay? And I'm hoping that maybe at some point in time we get a chance to work with each other because we have a lot of similarities,
Yes.
what you do. And I feel like the program I have that's going to come up soon is going to be like a part 2 to that. So
Okay.
we'll talk about it though. We'll have to have a
Absolutely.
whole conversation. So
Love it.
without further ado, we're going to close out with a word from our sponsor, The Female Solution. This has been season 2, episode 6. Let's talk breaking cycles with your host, the spiritualist, and special guest, Calina Black, the cycle breaking coach and founder, CEO and founder of 888 Coaching. Thank you all for coming in and have a beautiful, beautiful evening. We'll see you next week. Bye.
We've come to the end of our show today. If you missed any broadcasts, go to our website for the audio and video archives at www.thefemalesolution.com. On behalf of our team of radio hosts, I'd like to thank all of you who participated in today's discussions. And to our global family joining us from all around the world, we say thank you. To our family in China, xie xie. India, zhanyavad. Japan, arigato. Korea, kamsamnida. Russia, spasiba. Germany, danke. Poland, dziękuję. France, merci. Spain, gracias. Italy, grazie. Egypt, shukran. Ghana, madasi. Nigeria, eshe. South Africa, ngiyabonga. Senegal, jareh. Kenya, asante. Israel, toda. Pakistan, shukriya. Afghanistan, tashakur. Saudi Arabia and Palestine, shukran. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Thank you, and may peace be upon you and the mercy of God and God's blessings.